The bitter taste of self-pity coated my tongue, thick as the Arkham fog. I remember that night vividly, the dim light of my shabby apartment flickering ominously as I sank deeper into the couch, a cheap whiskey bottle cradled in my hand. I took another swig, feeling the familiar burn slide down my throat like an old friend. The clock on the wall ticked relentlessly, its sound mirroring the weight of regret hanging over me. With a sudden motion, I slammed the empty bottle onto the grimy table, its shattering echoing my own despair. I needed to make a change, but every time I reached out for help or opportunity, it slipped through my fingers like smoke. My ex-cop buddy John had laughed when I asked him for work. "You need to bring your own dog, Marcus," he'd said with a dismissive chuckle. His words stung more than they should have. Desperation clawed at my insides as I stood there, feeling like a relic from a past life. My thoughts drifted as I stumbled out into the night, the stale scent of old coffee and desperation clinging to my clothes. The streets were slick with rain, reflecting the scattered neon lights that struggled to shine through the mist. I walked with purpose now, each step heavy with intention yet tinged with doubt. The city around me felt alive in its decay, it breathed in sync with my own fractured spirit. As I passed a public trash can, something compelled me to toss the empty bottle inside. It landed with a dull thud, a silent promise to myself that this would be my turning point. My heart raced at the thought of change, maybe tonight would be different. Suddenly, a voice cut through the night like a knife. "Marcus." A familiar figure emerged from the shadows, Eddie "Smoke" Palmieri, his presence both comforting and alarming at once. He stepped closer, his face illuminated by a flickering streetlight, revealing deep lines etched by years of hard living. "You look rough," he remarked dryly. "Thanks for noticing," I replied bitterly, unable to hide the edge in my voice. He smirked but quickly shifted gears. "Listen up, you need to hear this." His tone dropped low as he leaned in closer. I could smell whiskey on his breath mingling with something darker. "Fear? There's something brewing in Kane's crew." My pulse quickened at those words. Vincent Kane was untouchable, a specter lurking just outside the bounds of law enforcement that once claimed me. "What do you mean?" I asked cautiously. Eddie glanced around nervously before continuing. "There's tension building among them, betrayals and shifts happening behind closed doors." His eyes narrowed as if searching for truth within mine. "We both know how this city works, where there's chaos in one corner, there's opportunity for someone who wants it bad enough." I let his words hang in the air between us while a flicker of hope ignited within me despite everything. The prospect of diving back into that world sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. Maybe this was what I needed to break free from this unending cycle of despair. "What do you want me to do?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Get close," Eddie instructed urgently. "Find out what's really happening and maybe we can turn it into something profitable." He paused before adding quietly, "For both of us." The weight of his suggestion settled heavily on my shoulders. Trust was a fragile commodity in our line of work. Yet here was Eddie offering me a lifeline back into something resembling purpose, a dangerous yet tantalizing proposition. "I can't just walk back into that world," I muttered under my breath even though every part of me yearned for it. The thrill of danger and discovery mingled dangerously with fear and regret. "You think you have a choice?" Eddie challenged sharply. "You're already neck-deep in this misery, you either sink or swim." His words struck home hard. Suddenly everything felt clearer. The walls around me began closing in again, the weight of regret pressing down, but I couldn't afford to let fear control me any longer. At that moment, determination surged within me like an electric jolt. Uncertainty still lingered like fog obscuring clarity, but it no longer paralyzed me completely. I squared my shoulders and met Eddie's gaze head-on as resolve steadied my pulse. "Fine," I said firmly. "Let's do it." A grin broke across his face, an alliance forged under desperate circumstances, and we set off into the heart of darkness together, two ghosts rising from our respective graves bound by shared scars and unyielding ambition. The path ahead shimmered with possibility, but danger lurked behind every corner too, yet finally stepping out after so long felt invigorating, if not terrifying, in equal measure. As we walked deeper into Arkham's underbelly together under flickering streetlights casting long shadows against broken pavement, an adventure awaited us amidst chaos where loyalty and betrayal danced hand in hand. I knew one thing: this was just the beginning of whatever awaited us ahead. A cold, damp air enveloped me as I stepped into the Arkham Forest Park, thick with the smell of pine and something subtly metallic that sent a shiver down my spine. My boots crunched on the damp leaves, echoing like a heartbeat in the stillness. With each step, I was drawn deeper into the shadows, where the city's noise faded away, leaving only the rustling of branches and the occasional distant call of an owl. I remembered Eddie's words about Kane's crew and felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through my veins. There was something ominous lurking here, an energy that made my skin crawl. Suddenly, I saw it again, a figure cloaked in darkness, slipping silently between trees like smoke. My heart pounded as I instinctively followed. The silhouette moved with an eerie grace, leading me toward an isolated house nestled deep within the woods. The structure appeared abandoned, but faint lights flickered through the cracked windows, hinting at life hidden beneath layers of decay. My instincts screamed at me to turn back, curiosity propelled me forward instead. The air grew thicker as I neared the house. It felt charged with secrets waiting to be unearthed. An unsettling metallic scent grew stronger, overwhelming my senses as I approached the door, which hung ajar on rusted hinges. With a quick glance behind me, nothing but shadows, I pushed it open further and stepped inside. Inside, shadows danced along the walls from flickering candles placed strategically throughout. A low murmur caught my attention. I moved silently toward the source of the sound. Peeking around a corner, I spotted two figures huddled together in what appeared to be a dimly lit living room cluttered with remnants of old furniture and strange symbols etched into the floorboards. Their conversation sent chills crawling up my spine. "Ancient pacts," one whispered urgently. "We must maintain control over bloodlines or risk everything." I froze at those words, feeling a sickening lurch in my gut as understanding dawned on me. This wasn't just about gang violence, it was something far darker than I'd imagined. The weight of their discussion pressed heavily on my chest as terror gripped me like a vice. Suddenly, movement caught my eye. A girl emerged from behind them, Jessica, the missing daughter I had been searching for all along. My breath hitched in my throat as she looked directly at me through wide eyes that held a terror deeper than any human fear. "He's not just a criminal," she whispered hoarsely, stepping closer to me despite the danger surrounding us. "He's something else." I took a cautious step toward her while keeping my gaze fixed on her captors. Panic flooded through me at her words, igniting every instinct honed during my years on the force. "What do you mean?" My voice trembled despite myself. "They've made deals with forces beyond our understanding," she continued urgently. "You have to get out, now." Her eyes darted nervously back to the men whose whispers had turned frantic. Realization crashed over me like a wave. The stakes were much higher than I had anticipated. This wasn't merely about finding Jessica anymore. I was stumbling into a nightmare woven with threads of ancient power and unyielding darkness. My heart raced as urgency propelled me into action. I grabbed Jessica's hand and pulled her towards the exit before they could react. The moment we stepped back into the night air outside felt almost like emerging from water, gasping for breath after being submerged too long. Before we could escape entirely from danger, one of those figures shouted behind us, "Stop! You can't run from what's already inside you." My pulse quickened at his chilling declaration, each beat echoing loudly in my ears as adrenaline surged through my system once more. We dashed through trees and brush without looking back. Every instinct told me to run faster, deeper into safety, but even then uncertainty clawed at my mind like nails scraping against metal. As we burst from under the dense canopy and out into an open space illuminated by streetlights lining nearby roads, exhaustion set in quickly. It enveloped me like a heavy blanket woven from fear and regret woven together tightly around our escape route. "Why are they after you?" I asked breathlessly when we paused just outside sight of that cursed house, the memory seared into both our minds forever now. Her expression turned grave as she replied softly, "I don't know exactly what they want, but it has something to do with who I am." Every word out of her mouth felt heavier than stone. Dread filled every crevice within me while anticipation twisted itself into knots inside my stomach. What did that mean? The absence of answers gnawed relentlessly at us both as we stood there uncertainly under flickering streetlights illuminating this hidden world hiding just beneath surface-level appearances all around us now revealed so starkly before our eyes. Darkness lurked everywhere, even where light dared shine brightly above it all. I realized then that whatever shadow had taken hold within these woods was no longer confined to mere criminals fighting for territory. It reached deep into ancient bloodlines entwined around family trees stretching far beyond mortal comprehension itself. We had stumbled unwittingly onto sacred ground tainted by corruption festering beneath its surface. In that moment, standing beside Jessica, a girl caught between worlds, my resolve solidified. This was no simple investigation anymore, it was survival against something unfathomable lurking just beneath reality itself. With determination burning fiercely within me now, I vowed silently that if anyone could confront whatever nightmare lay ahead, it would be us together facing down its horrors side by side. The night stretched endlessly before us, a darkened horizon filled only by questions unanswered yet resolute hearts steering fate onward towards confrontation rather than retreat. We would uncover truths hidden within shadowy realms until light broke free upon their secrets buried deep. The park, once a quiet sanctuary, erupted into chaos as the figures lunged toward Jessica. I remember feeling the adrenaline surge through my veins, igniting every instinct honed over years of fighting crime. "No!" I screamed, my voice cutting through the stillness like a siren. Time seemed to slow as I charged forward, desperate to reach her before those shadowy forms could snatch her away. My fists flew, connecting with bone, the satisfying crack echoing in my ears even as pain shot through my arm, searing fire that nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. I didn't care, all that mattered was keeping Jessica safe. As I stumbled forward, trying to regain my balance, I saw her wide-eyed and terrified, frozen in place as dark shapes swirled around her like vultures circling prey. The night air crackled with tension as I threw another punch at one of the assailants. The creature barely flinched, instead, it darted toward Jessica with impossible speed. My heart raced as dread clawed at my throat. "Run!" I shouted at her, but it was too late. The winged creatures had already enveloped her. In horror, I watched as she was lifted from the ground, soaring into the dark sky against her will. "No! Jessica!" Panic surged within me like a tidal wave crashing against a crumbling shore. The weight of helplessness bore down on me as I scrambled forward again, grabbing for anything that could help pull her back from their grasp. But then they turned their attention on me, eyes glinting with malevolent hunger. My fists were no match for their strength. One of them lunged at me with a shriek that echoed through the trees, an unholy sound that made my skin crawl. Suddenly, sharp teeth sank into my flesh, a sickening tearing sensation radiated from my arm as pain exploded like fireworks beneath my skin. I staggered back, clutching the wound while blood poured from between my fingers, hot and sticky, mingling with adrenaline and fear in a macabre cocktail. The metallic tang filled my mouth, overwhelming me as I sank to the damp earth beneath me. Get away from her. My voice was raw but desperate. There was no way in hell I would let them take Jessica without a fight. I looked around wildly for something, anything, that could turn this tide. In the moonlight filtering through branches above, I caught sight of a jagged rock jutting out of the ground nearby. With renewed resolve coursing through me despite the pain radiating from my arm, I lunged for it and gripped it tightly in my hand. Before those shadowy figures could pounce again, I swung the rock wildly at one of them. It connected with an audible crunch against its skull. A howl of rage pierced through the night air as it staggered backward, momentarily stunned by the blow. Stay back! I bellowed again, feeling emboldened by desperation rather than courage. But just when it seemed like I might have gained some ground, more figures emerged from behind trees like phantoms, swarming around us in an endless tide of darkness. Jessica's terrified scream echoed painfully in my ears, a haunting melody that urged me to move faster than ever before. Despite everything, the pain coursing through me and uncertainty suffocating every thought, I rose to face them head-on once more. Marcus! Her voice trembled amidst chaos, a lifeline in this storm swirling around us, and ignited a spark deep within me that refused to flicker out under pressure. I charged forward again towards where she had been taken, the shadows closing in relentlessly, but as their grotesque forms lunged toward us once more with unnatural speed combined with hunger-driven ferocity, I felt an overwhelming wave of despair threaten to swallow me whole. They were too many, too powerful. But then something primal stirred within, the urge to protect what was mine surged higher than ever before, and it fueled every ounce of energy left in my battered body. With renewed determination fueling each movement despite blood streaming down from wounds across my arms and neck, a visceral reminder of what we were up against, I raised that jagged rock high above my head and roared defiantly into the night. At that moment, everything changed. I dove headfirst into chaos, unleashing fury upon whatever dared approach our sanctuary once more, one reckless swing at a time while battling against fading hope that threatened to drown us both. My heart thundered loud enough to drown out all rational thought. It became solely about survival. Each figure fell back momentarily disoriented by this sudden ferocity emanating from one man whose life hung precariously over an abyss he couldn't even comprehend anymore. As darkness pooled around us, threatening to envelop everything, I caught one last glimpse of Jessica's frightened expression just before shadows consumed her entirely. In those final moments before losing consciousness amidst this nightmare unfolding all around, I felt despair clench its icy grip tighter around my heart, but somewhere deep down inside, a flicker of hope remained, a promise woven into every fiber yearning for survival. A blinding white light engulfed me, then a swirling, dreamless darkness followed. I lost track of time, drifting in and out of consciousness like a leaf caught in a storm. When I finally became aware again, a searing pain racked my body, as if fire coursed through my veins. Each heartbeat echoed in my ears, loud and relentless, like a war drum signaling an impending battle. I groaned softly, trying to remember how I had ended up here. I felt my stomach churn violently, cramping with a hunger unlike anything I'd ever known. It was primal and insatiable, a ravenous beast clawing at the walls of my insides, demanding to be fed. Panic surged within me as I pushed myself upright, only to stagger back from the blinding sun spilling into the dim room. The light stung my skin like acid, causing me to recoil in horror when I noticed my exposed hand beginning to sting and smoke under its rays. I glanced around the unfamiliar space, a dilapidated cabin hidden deep within the woods. The air was thick with dust and decay, remnants of old furniture lay scattered across the floor like forgotten memories. My senses sharpened painfully, even the hum of insects outside became an unbearable symphony that threatened to overwhelm me. Desperation clawed at my throat as I stumbled toward the door, driven by that relentless hunger gnawing at me from within. With each step, flashes of what had happened before flooded back: Jessica's terrified face, shadows moving with impossible speed, betrayal lurking beneath every surface. But now wasn't the time to linger on those thoughts. I needed to escape this cabin and figure out what was happening to me. As I reached for the doorknob, it turned in an unexpected twist. Before I could grasp it fully, a wave of nausea struck me down again. My knees buckled beneath me as I collapsed onto the wooden floorboards. Waves of dizziness washed over me as if the very ground wanted to swallow me whole. In that moment of weakness, an unsettling noise drew my attention. Outside, the faint sound of buzzing grew louder until it became deafening. The insects, their wings were like whispers in my ears, a swarm of life teeming just beyond those weathered walls. Without thinking, I forced myself to swallow one that landed nearby. A vile crunch echoed in my mouth as I choked it down, sickened yet momentarily dulling the ache burning deep within me. Then came another sound: laughter. A chilling cackle floated through the open window on a breeze laden with scents both familiar and foreign, something sweet yet metallic that twisted my stomach in knots. My instincts flared as adrenaline pumped through my veins once more. There was danger lurking just outside this fragile sanctuary. With renewed determination coursing through me despite the lingering pain and sickness that clouded my mind, I crawled toward a window whose glass had long since shattered, jagged edges reflecting shards of sunlight dancing on cold earth below. Peering through cautiously revealed figures moving beneath towering trees, dark shapes blending into shadows like phantoms stalking prey. They were searching for something, or someone. My breath quickened as realization hit hard. They were after Jessica. I couldn't let them find her. Clenching my jaw against rising panic, I pushed myself up gingerly until I stood swaying unsteadily on trembling legs. Each heartbeat echoed louder now, a constant reminder that time was slipping away from me faster than ever before. Steeling myself against fear coursing through every fiber of my being, I threw open the door with unexpected force. The sudden rush of fresh air enveloped me, a jolt grounding me back into reality, but it also carried a wave of dread from what lay ahead. I stepped outside cautiously but confidently into the muted light filtering through tree branches overhead. Shadows danced around me like spirits eager to reclaim their territory while insects buzzed incessantly nearby, an unsettling chorus urging caution. That hunger gnawed at my insides again. Each step forward felt heavier than before, but there would be no turning back now, not when Jessica needed me most. I ventured deeper into this forest prison where secrets lingered behind every rustling leaf. My heart raced as something flickered at the edge of perception just beyond sight: movement. A fleeting shadow darted between trees like an elusive whisper mocking my pursuit. Jessica. My voice echoed out into silence, followed by nothing but rustling branches and distant calls from unknown creatures lurking beyond sight. And then it happened. A figure emerged, wild hair tangled and matted with dirt, clothes torn and stained, but eyes wide with recognition. It was her. "Marcus," she gasped breathlessly before glancing over her shoulder nervously as if expecting shadows to pounce at any moment. At that moment everything else faded away, the chaos surrounding us dissolved into nothingness. The only thing that mattered was reaching her before whatever hunted us could close in for good. "Get down!" I shouted instinctively as dark forms materialized among trees surrounding us, silent predators drawn by desperation, their piercing gazes locking onto us like iron shackles tightening around our throats. "Run!" My command rang out harshly against encroaching doom. We had no other choice but flight. We couldn't wait for answers when survival hung precariously on our shoulders. With adrenaline pulsing hotly beneath skin stretched thin by fear and uncertainty, I grabbed Jessica's hand tightly, our fingers intertwined like lifelines tethering us against despair, and we sprinted deeper into night's embrace together. The hum of the city faded as I stepped into the back of the sleek limousine, the leather seats embracing me like an unwanted comfort. At that moment, I felt a chill creep up my spine, a shiver that whispered of the darkness I was about to wade into. Tyler was waiting for me, a self-made king in this twisted underworld, and I was ready to offer my talents, though I could barely recognize who I had become. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted my tie, attempting to exude an air of confidence while the turmoil inside me raged like a storm. "Let's get this over with," I muttered under my breath as the vehicle glided through the rain-soaked streets. Each passing streetlight cast fleeting shadows on my face, mirroring the secrets lurking just below the surface. As we approached Tyler's hideout, an old warehouse repurposed into a palace of vice, anticipation clawed at my insides. I stepped out into the cool night air, taking a moment to inhale deeply, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The heavy door swung open before me, revealing a dimly lit interior buzzing with low conversation and laughter tinged with menace. All around me were faces hardened by betrayal and shadows dancing on walls that seemed to pulse with life. It took everything in me not to recoil from their gaze. Each pair of eyes scrutinized me as if I were already marked. "Marcus," Tyler greeted with a predatory smile, his eyes gleaming like polished obsidian. "I've been waiting for you." The way he said my name sent an unsettling thrill racing through my veins. He waved me over to a table where his crew gathered like vultures over carrion. My stomach twisted at the sight. These were not just criminals, they were monsters masquerading in human skin. "I called you here because we need someone with your experience," he continued smoothly, leaning forward as if our conversation were a secret pact etched in blood. "Things have gotten messy since Vincent started losing control." A cold dread settled within me when I understood what he meant. The stakes were higher than I'd anticipated. This wasn't just about survival, it was about power plays and bloodshed among predators. "What do you need?" My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Tyler leaned back, regarding me with an intensity that made every nerve in my body scream for escape but also ignited something darker within me. "We have a traitor among us," he revealed casually while gesturing toward a hulking figure tied to a chair at the far end of the room, a man whose face was bruised and swollen, eyes filled with terror. I watched intently as Tyler approached him, every step deliberate and calculated. There was an elegance to his brutality that both horrified and fascinated me. He pulled out a wooden dagger from his coat, an instrument of ancient retribution, and without hesitation plunged it into the traitor's heart. At that moment, time froze as dust swirled in the air around us like fallen leaves in autumn. Horror gripped me tightly while ash billowed from the man's disintegrating body, the final screams echoing through my mind long after they fell silent. Bloodlust surged within me like wildfire, it roared beneath my skin, a primal yearning battling against everything I once stood for as an officer of the law. My breath came quick and shallow as reality blurred around me. I had aligned myself with monsters and witnessed their savage cruelty firsthand. The weight of moral debt weighed heavily upon my chest. How had I come to this point? Yet something else simmered beneath that horror, an insidious thrill at being part of this hidden world where chaos reigned supreme. Tyler turned back toward me, wiping his hands clean on a pristine handkerchief while studying my reaction closely. "This is how we deal with disloyalty," he stated matter-of-factly before his gaze pierced through me like an icy dagger. "You understand now why we need you." I nodded slowly but felt nothing but revulsion mixed with reluctant acceptance. Surviving here meant embracing their darkness even if it gnawed at my soul like a relentless beast craving release. My heart raced as I met Tyler's gaze. Feigning loyalty became second nature even though deep down, all that mattered was finding Jessica, my only beacon amid this consuming void. "Good," Tyler said finally, satisfied by my response or perhaps sensing something deeper within me, a flicker of potential unleashed by fear and desperation mingling together into one intoxicating elixir fueling whatever monstrous ambition lurked inside. As conversations resumed around us filled with laughter tinged by malice, I slipped further into their world, a labyrinth forged by betrayal and survival where shadows danced merrily while hearts grew cold, a place where every choice came at an unspeakable cost. With each passing moment spent alongside these creatures born from nightmares, clarity emerged. This alliance wasn't merely about biding time or waiting for opportunities. It became survival against all odds in search of Jessica before darkness consumed us both whole. The night stretched on endlessly as we plotted our next move within this den of treachery, a twisted game where loyalty could turn deadly in an instant, yet somewhere deep inside echoed remnants of who I once was battling against who I'd become. And there it lingered, that primal yearning now entwined with fear. Could I truly navigate this treacherous landscape without losing myself entirely? Only time would tell. The air in the cellar grew impossibly heavy, charged with despair and a father's twisted love. I stood there, engulfed in shadows and the faint scent of damp earth, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. The flickering light from a single bulb overhead cast eerie shapes across the walls, morphing into grotesque figures that danced tauntingly around me. It was then that I saw her, Jessica, bruised but defiant, dragged into Tyler's lair by two hulking goons. My breath caught in my throat, hope flickered within me like a dying flame. I froze for a moment, my body instinctively wanting to charge forward and save her. But dread washed over me as my gaze met hers. In that instant of silent communication, I recognized the terror etched on her face alongside a flicker of something else, an understanding that we were both trapped in this nightmare together. My heart twisted painfully at the thought of what Tyler had planned for us. "Ah, Marcus," Tyler's voice sliced through the tension like a knife, slick with mockery. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, relishing the sight before him. "You've arrived just in time." He stepped closer to Jessica, who struggled against her captors. "She must be turned," he pronounced cruelly, his eyes gleaming with sadistic pleasure as he turned toward me, "and you will do it." A chill crept through me at his words. I fought against the nausea rising in my throat as I processed what he was demanding. "Turn Jessica?" It felt like a betrayal so profound that it clawed at my insides like an unrelenting beast demanding release. I looked into her eyes again, seeking reassurance or perhaps forgiveness for what was about to happen. "Please," Jessica's voice trembled as she spoke softly yet firmly, forcing me to focus on her instead of the chaos around us. "There's no other way, we both survive." I felt the desperate urgency in her touch as she guided my fangs toward her neck, a gesture filled with resignation and resolve. My hands shook violently as they hovered near her soft skin, fear and desire entwined within me like serpents coiling tighter with every heartbeat. The weight of this choice bore down upon me like an anchor threatening to pull me under. My world shifted. I was no longer just an observer caught in this tangled web of darkness. I was now part of it. I managed to choke out, desperation flooding my senses. But deep down, I knew there was no other option if we wanted to escape this hell alive. The air shimmered around us with electric tension. Everything had led to this moment, this unspeakable choice. With a final glance into Jessica's eyes that held both fear and an unyielding trust, I plunged my fangs into her neck. A scream tore through my soul as her blood filled my mouth, warm and intoxicating, yet laced with agony that reverberated throughout my being like an echo of death itself. The taste was forbidden fruit, pleasure and pain intermingled until they became indistinguishable from one another. Her body went rigid beneath me. I could feel every pulse of life leaving her as I drank deeper still, the ultimate betrayal mixed with sacrifice swirling around us like a dark cloud suffocating everything good left inside me. Time lost its meaning as shadows deepened and reality began to blur around the edges. At that moment, Tyler's laughter rang out, a cruel symphony harmonizing with our shared torment, and echoed through the cellar's dim confines like an omen heralding doom. I could hear him whispering promises of power mingling with our destruction. He reveled in his control over our fates while taunting us from the fringes. As Jessica's strength waned beneath me, tears streamed down her cheeks, each drop fueling guilt deeper than any wound could inflict. How had it come to this? How had I become part of their monstrous game? My heart ached for what I'd taken from her, the very essence that kept us tethered to life now slipping away into the void. I pulled back abruptly, gasping for air as though surfacing from deep waters after drowning, a heart-stopping realization crashing over me like waves against jagged rocks. I'd sealed our fate in blood, the final act that condemned us both to this insidious cycle of darkness. Jessica's breathing grew shallow, life ebbed away beneath my touch while horror settled heavily within my chest, a weight far worse than any physical burden I'd ever carried before in uniform or beyond. "I'm sorry," came out in a whisper barely audible above Tyler's mocking laughter reverberating through the room. As she stared at me with fading light, recognition lingered amid despair, our shared history intertwined forever despite circumstances twisting it into something unrecognizable, something grotesque yet undeniably real. With each passing heartbeat echoing through silence thicker than fog wrapping around every corner of this dark place where shadows thrived on misery and betrayal alike, I realized no amount of remorse could undo what had transpired here tonight. But even amidst despair's heavy chains pulling at our souls, the faintest glimmer remained alive somewhere deep within, hope rooted not only in survival but perhaps redemption waiting patiently on some distant horizon where light broke free from shadow's grasp. And so we lingered between worlds forged by choices made under duress, a haunting reminder that even monsters could find meaning amid their darkness if they dared take the leap toward something greater than mere existence. The world is a tapestry of shadows and scents now, a distorted reflection of my former life. I wander through the alleyways of Arkham, each step echoing the past I can never reclaim. The night wraps around me like an old, tattered cloak, its frayed edges dragging on the ground as I scavenge for blood to keep my cravings at bay. My senses sharpen in this darkness, every sound, every flicker of movement sends adrenaline coursing through my veins. I see them, other humans, huddled around flickering fires and crumbling doorways, their faces gaunt and hollowed from desperation. My heart aches with a loneliness so profound it feels like a physical wound, a constant reminder of what I've lost. I want to reach out to them, to share in their struggles, but something primal holds me back. Instead, I linger on the periphery of their lives, a ghost haunting the edges of their humanity. At that moment, a couple passes by, whispering sweet nothings that cut through the air like shards of glass. Their laughter is infectious, yet it only deepens the hollowness within me. I feel an insatiable hunger clawing at my insides, not just for blood but for connection. These fleeting moments remind me of what once was. I yearn for warmth and companionship that now seem eternally out of reach. As I wander deeper into this labyrinthine cityscape, the scent of blood hangs heavy in the air, a siren call that pulls me forward. My instincts scream at me to follow it, promising release from the gnawing emptiness inside. But then I catch sight of her. Jessica's face flickers through my memory like a beacon amidst the darkness. That single image grounds me as if tethering my soul to hope. I glimpse other humans from the shadows again, their eyes dart around warily as they exchange whispered conspiracies about Tyler and his crew. Fear hangs thick between them like smoke from a dying fire. My fingers twitch at my side, yearning to intervene but knowing any move could expose me to threats lurking in every corner. As uncertainty gnaws at my resolve, I remind myself why I'm here, to find her again. The thought ignites a fire in my chest. My purpose is a single fragile thread, the hope of seeing her again, my lady of the night, in this endless darkness. Suddenly, sounds break through the stillness, the unmistakable cadence of footsteps approaching from behind. My heart races as I duck behind a dumpster, peering cautiously into the dimly lit street where figures loom against flickering streetlights like phantoms emerging from another realm. I need to stay hidden if I'm going to uncover what's happening beneath this nocturnal veil. A murmur reaches my ears, "Tyler's losing control," one voice says with urgency while others nod solemnly in agreement. "He's getting reckless." Each word weighs heavily on me. I can sense danger rising like an incoming tide threatening to engulf everything in its path. With renewed determination surging within me, I slip further into the shadows as they begin dispersing down separate alleyways leading away from danger, or perhaps toward it depending on how you looked at it. The moonlit streets pulse with life, every corner hides secrets untold while beneath it all lies an undercurrent filled with dread and anticipation alike. I navigate through this treacherous maze where morality has twisted into something grotesque yet undeniably real. I've become part of something much larger than myself and yet am still clinging desperately onto those remnants that define who I once was. The city hums with energy, the streets alive with tension as rival factions vie for dominance amidst chaos lurking just beneath the surface waiting for an unsuspecting soul to trip over invisible lines drawn in blood long ago spilled. Just then, an idea strikes me. A plan taking shape amid uncertainty where shadows dance merrily around us while hearts grow cold. It dawns on me that perhaps aligning myself with those who seek power could serve a greater purpose after all, finding Jessica before darkness consumes us both whole. It won't be easy, every move must be calculated, the stakes higher than ever before, but somewhere deep inside echoes remnants of who I once was battling against, who I'd become since entering this unforgiving realm governed by fear and survival instincts alike. Determined not to lose sight of her again, my heart racing wildly, I step back into motion seeking clues hidden within whispered conversations or furtive glances exchanged between those who traverse this treacherous landscape daily without fail. With each passing night spent wandering these streets filled with despair yet flickers of potential remain, who knew that even monsters could find meaning amid their darkness? Today when I look back upon my choices made under duress, I realize there lies strength buried within vulnerability waiting patiently for recognition amidst suffering we all share regardless of our station in life. Every heartbeat reminds me, we are not so different after all. Even if our paths diverged long ago, we all search for love amidst chaos hoping against hope that somehow light will break free from shadow's grasp. And so here I am, a disgraced cop who became a monster yet still clings fiercely onto what flicker remains, a mere shadow among shadows drifting along seeking redemption buried somewhere beneath layers upon layers forged by choices made before this endless night began. Y así sigo adelante.